broken, and the other half are a little not so great, your leader potential is not going to look so good. So the goal here is filling the top of the pipeline, of the funnel of the people who come into the organization. And what do we do about keeping the best ones? Now, I'm going to stand, I think, over here, so am I going to block your view if I over here, does it matter? Anyone know? Okay, good. So I'm making a few assumptions here. One, talent matters. Fair assumption? Organizational, and two, organizational leaders actually believe that talent matters. By the way, that's a big part of your job, is to convince them that talent is a critical competitive advantage. If they don't believe that, then HR is just sort of a paperwork, tactical job, right? Second, organizational fit is important. People who work at Google, even though they're really great at writing code and software, etc., and maybe super smart, may not necessarily be a good fit at Coca-Cola or the NSA or other organizations, because every organization has its own sort of culture and values, and someone who fits in at IBM may not fit in so well at the typical railroad. Fair assumption? Okay, job fit. We all have different strengths, capabilities, skills, abilities, knowledge, technical experience, etc. Doesn't mean you're a bad person if you don't fit for this job. Someone who's a great middle-level manager for an operations role probably isn't going to be the best marketing executive. It's just a completely different skill set and capability set. Okay, so we all agree? Good, okay, now that we're all talking about the same thing, now that we know that, what do we do to try to get the right people on the bus, our organization, and then in the right chairs? Because you could hire fantastic, amazing people, put them all in the wrong seats. Like imagine if 50% of your corporate staff all did a round robin and changed roles. You're no longer going to be in finance, you're now going to be in human resources. You're no longer being human resources, congratulations, you just got promoted to operational leader in this plant in New Jersey. If you don't have the right people in the right jobs, things get very complicated very fast. Yes, there's value in rotating people around so they have a better understanding of the view, but ideally, the right people in the right organization in the right roles so they're going to be able to leverage their strengths. Quick poll. What approaches do companies typically use? Maybe not your company, it's okay if you don't want to admit what you do in your company. The companies typically use to try to find good people. This is the audience participation section. Job fairs, thank you, right? Monster.com or other career websites, right? Anyone have a careers page on your corporate website?
Yes.
Raise your hand. Right. If you don't, raise your hand. Like almost everyone does these days, right? It's pretty common. Do anyone go to universities and try to hire recent graduates or MBAs, etc.? Yeah, very big way of doing it. Anyone else? What do you do once you got people applying? How does that process work? Anyone use an applicant tracking system? Yeah. Phone interviews? Resume checks? Drug testing? Background screens? Pre-employment tests? Thank you. Anyone do interviewing? You know that crazy thing where someone who's a hiring manager who knows nothing about HR sits across from the employee, future employee, and tries to determine whether they're going to be a good fit? You know that? Yeah. Isn't that the one we use the most?
Yes.
Yep. Because we know that our hiring managers absolutely know how to do good interviews, right? Okay. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. Does this sound familiar? Organizations trying to bring in the best talent always struggle with one or two problems. We have endless amounts of people applying for our jobs. We're Google. We get bombarded with zillions of applicants. Or we've got a job and it's like finding a needle in a haystack. We just can't get the right people, or we don't get enough of the right types of people. I'm going to tell you a little secret. I have a client. I'm not going to mention the name. Big corporate big consulting company. You would definitely recognize the name if I mentioned it, so I'm not going to say it. They've got university campus recruiting, graduate recruiting going on. They go to the best and brightest schools, hire the best and brightest people from various majors and specific little universities that may not be Ivy League, but are obviously very competitive. And they get lots of people applying for the jobs. One particular group in the organization, for whatever reason, very similar job, got very few applicants. They would like to take the people who didn't get hired from the other groups, who didn't necessarily meet the criteria, to interview them. And the HR person's calling me saying, what do I do? My client is telling me they want to hire the people that everyone else basically turned away. So sometimes within the same organization, the company is very attractive, but the particular role isn't for some reason. They just can't seem to get the right people. Is it that the job's just horrible? No, it's actually quite comparable to the other jobs. They're just not sourcing properly for that role. How do you bring people into the organization? What do you normally do to draw people into your company? Why do they come work for you? Benefits? Reputation? Absolutely. Google gets bombarded with applications. Google has said, we don't even know why people are coming to us except that we have such a big brand. It's amazing. They get insane amounts of applicants, and there's no way they can sort through all of them realistically and review them all, right? So how do you get people to come into your organization? How do you get them interested enough that they want to apply? Well, one of the things that we've done in my organization is we've actually helped to improve the engagement of the people before they're applicants, right on the career website. This is sort of a new trend in hiring and selection. Companies generally aren't doing it. It is a self-assessment tool where they go through a quick little questionnaire that just asks some critical questions that you would normally ask in an interview that would be knockout questions, and also sort of organizational values fit questions. That the candidate gets to kind of play this little quick game of 5, 10, 15 questions and find out more about the company and about the job before they ever even consider whether to apply or not. They're just curious. It's sort of fun. So, anyone hear of Sunglass Hut? Luxottica is the parent company. Now, Sunglass Hut, basically, the business model is they have these little kiosk stands in malls primarily, and there's 2 staff manning it, and there's these nice, beautiful sunglasses on these racks, and people are constantly walking by. Most of the hires are, hourly employee types, a lot of transitional working. It's quite seasonal. So their goal is to get people in, get them training, get them on the job long enough that it's worth having hired them and trained them, right? Because there's lots of turnover in this kind of a job. Part of the problem is people think this is really cool. It's a neat job to work in a mall and have you selling really nice sunglasses, etc. But did you know that part of your job as someone as a Sunglass Hut employee is to constantly monitor the stands to make sure no one's stealing them? So, wouldn't you want to know, before you get too far down the hiring process, how do you feel about having to approach someone who's possibly about to steal a pair of sunglasses and stopping them before it happens? Well, I don't want to do that. I don't have those kind of hard conversations with someone I don't know. Well, if you don't want to do that, you can't work here. We should never have gotten this far down the process of interviewing. So why not ask a series of questions about, do you like sunglasses? Do you about organizational culture and fit? Do you mind working on weekends and holidays, which is when most of their business is? Do you, these sort of things. Because if they're going to say, no, I would never do that, because I don't like to work on weekends or holidays, or no, I would never want to tell someone to stop, let go of the sunglasses and step away, please, then you probably shouldn't work here. So these sort of tools are really neat. This is called a Realistic Job Preview, but it's an online questionnaire that's literally on the career site. And I'll show you an example in a second. One of our airlines clients is one of the biggest ones internationally. It's one of these sort of discount airlines, very popular. And they have something called Try Before You Fly. And it's literally on their career website, and it's this Realistic Job Preview. They have 27,000 people per month participating in this online questionnaire. This is before they apply for the job. They're just on the career site, and they try it out. Before, a lot of those people applied. So what would happen? Their ATS system, Taleo, would get full of applicants of people who really should never even be spoken to, because honestly, they wouldn't like the job if you hired them. Now they take this questionnaire, and the questionnaire pleasantly encourages them, if they're a good fit, along the way as they answer the question. It gives them feedback. Oh, it's good that you said that you are fine working unusual hours or weekends or holidays, etc., because that's a big part of this job. And if you like sunglasses, then we think you'd probably really enjoy working here because there's lots of perks. You get discounts, etc., etc. Oh, you don't really think sunglasses are important, or you really can't work nights and weekends? We have other jobs, or there are other organizations where that may not be the case. That's perfectly fine, but you may not find that you like this job as much. And so it's literally gently encouraging and discouraging them to apply. So then they go through. They have 7,000 people per month apply. Look, 27,000 people take the questionnaire. They must be at least considering it or thinking it's a fun game, or they wouldn't try it, right? But now, only 7,000 people per month apply for the job. In the old days, it was a lot more people applying, and they'd get lots of junk in the system of the ATS, and then you'd have to sort. By the way, how many people have heard from friends or family, you've experienced it yourself? I applied for the job online, and they never even emailed me, like nothing. Well, if you reduce the number of people applying for the job in the first place, so those who actually might possibly be interested and might possibly like the job, who might, we think, fit and not get knocked out by our disqualifying questions, at least we're reducing it to people who are likely to be a good fit in the first place. This has had a great increase in terms of aiding their suitability of applicants, meaning while the number of applicants has decreased substantially, they've increased by 40%. The applicants who are applying, they're much better applicants. These are people who actually do want to talk to. And it's a fun, enjoyable, engaging tool for the applicants. Do you guys have anything fun and engaging on your website, careers page?
Nope.
Not at all.
Not at all. Great. This is, the airline is called EasyJet. You can go to their website, easyjet.com. It's a European airline, very similar to JetBlue or Southwest Airlines, something like this, okay? It's a pretty cool thing. Please, if you have 5 minutes, go online, play with it. It's really fun. It's called Try Before You Fly. Just go to the careers page. You'll see the links. Okay, enough about the attraction side. By the way, there's all sorts of attraction methodologies, right, that social media, et cetera, could be used to bring people in. Now imagine you have that little questionnaire on your website, not so complicated, custom to your organization, that actually helps you sort through best candidates. And then you promote that questionnaire through all the social media you do. Don't you think you'll draw a lot more people who might find it fun to your career site? Don't you think perhaps if I sent it to, I don't know, the National Association of Hispanic MBAs or Black MBAs or whatever engineers, or whatever minority group you're trying to actively bring into the pool, how about you promote to those groups and start trying to improve diversity by bringing in people who actually are a good fit? Yeah? Because they probably don't even know that they should be applying. Now let's talk about hiring people, selection process. Typical sourcing methods, we talked a little bit about it before. Posting a job online, perhaps your career site, career builder, any of those sort of job boards, receiving many, many applications. If you have an ATS, it sorts through it somewhat on your own. If you don't, you're going through paper. I've had many very heart-to-heart conversations with HR people who say we have an Excel file and a stack of applications. And you know what? The first 25% of the stack gets looked through. And if we can find who we need, there we go. And what does that mean? If you're the person who applied most recently on the day they decide to look at the stack, your odds are much better. So what do I tell the applicants? Apply every day? Once a week? Just apply again and again and again? Is that what you want them to realize the strategy is? Here's the secret. Apply weekly to the jobs you really want, because sooner or later you're likely to get your resume seen. Not a good strategy to tell them. But that's sort of really what's best for them, right? Not a great deal. If you review the applications, you create the short list, okay, these are the ones we're going to actually have a phone call with, maybe you call references, and then you have an interview. Tell me, on your interviews that you currently do in your organization, not your hiring managers, let's just talk about the actual recruiters and HR folks. Do you have a set list of questions that every applicant for the same job gets each time?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Do you have a set scoring methodology?
Yes.
Yes.
A set criteria for what a good answer or a bad answer looks like? Right. These are all steps of structure. When I say unstructured interviews, I mean missing some of these elements. The more structured the interview process is, the less hiring managers like it at first, because it doesn't give them the freedom to ask all those crazy acid test questions that they think work real well, like what's your favorite football team, or if you were in this crazy scenario, what would you do, that they've made up because they've read online that Google did it or something. But those structured interview questions and structured scoring methodologies and standardization about what good and bad responses are and anything else you can create to make more of a standardized process means that whomever does the interviewing is asking the same process. The candidates always get the same process. We're comparing apples to apples, so if I answer questions A, B, and C, I know the person I'm going against as another applicant is also asked those same questions, and you can compare across candidates to make sure you're looking at similar things. Very important. Did you know there's over 100 years of published research on best methods for hiring people and selection? Before I show it to you, I need to give you a quick stats lesson. Okay. Anyone know what a correlation is?
Yep.
Okay, good. So basically, it's a number from -1 to +1. The higher number, the stronger the relationship. Positive means that when one goes up, the other goes up. When that one goes down, the other one goes down. Negative relationship means they go in opposite directions. They repel each other. Okay? So, the use of umbrellas tends to go up when it is not a sunny day, in other words, raining. Most people don't use their umbrellas on really sunny days. Got it? Okay, so that's ask all those crazy acid test questions that they think work real well, like what's your favorite football team, or if you were in this crazy scenario, what would you do that they've made up because they've read or they've read online that Google did it or something. But those structured interview questions and structured scoring methodologies and standardization about what good and bad responses are and anything else you can create to make more of a standardized process means that whomever does the interviewing is asking the same process. The candidates always get the same process. We're comparing apples to apples, so if I answer questions A, B, and C, I know the person I'm going against as another applicant is also asked those same questions, and you can compare across candidates to make sure you're looking at similar things. Very important. Did you know there's over 100 years of published research on best methods for hiring people and selection? Before I show it to you, I need to give you a quick stats lesson. Okay. Anyone know what a correlation is?
Yep.
Okay, good. So basically, it's a number from -1 to +1. The higher number, the stronger the relationship. Positive means that when one goes up, the other goes up. When that one goes down, the other one goes down. Negative relationship means they go in opposite directions. They repel each other. Okay? So, the use of umbrellas tends to go up when it is not a sunny day, in other words, raining. Most people don't use their umbrellas on really sunny days. Got it? Okay, so that's basically the way a correlation works. This is a highly negative correlation. It's amazing that on a sunny day, the correlation of people who don't use umbrellas is about -0.70, -0.70. That's a very high correlation. Typical selection methods. Interest, in terms of career interest, or years of education. 0.10. Isn't that the first thing we look at resumes, is how many years of experience they have, job experience, and years of education, and do they have an interest in this career? Guess what? That's like the stuff at the bottom of the list about what actually most effectively predicts performance. But that's the key acid test criteria we look at first. Is it relevant? Sure, it's relevant, but it's not the best. Reference checks, 0.26. Unstructured interviews, which most organizations use, 0.38. So that's primarily what most companies are using. Most of us are not in the US using handwriting analysis. It's popular in Europe, not here. How many of you actually give applicants a sample of the job? Like an Excel file with all your pricing, made-up numbers, etc. And their job is to do, if they're a business intelligence type person, is to figure out a pricing strategy. And then you sit them down in front of a computer and it's like real work that someone would do. It's just a 30-minute or an hour-long segment of it. If you want to know if they can do the work, the best way to figure it out is to give them some. Right? That's called a work sample. There's a bigger process called assessment centers that does a similar thing. General abilities test, in other words, intelligence test, mental ability, intelligence. And structured interviews are both very, very highly effective. Personality tools, when you combine multiple dimensions together in a mathematical model formula that predicts performance, typically is about 0.50, also very predictive. People say personality tests don't really work. Well, they usually, when they do say that, they mean just a measure of conscientiousness, which is the one dimension that tends to work the best over all the different personality dimensions. But there's lots of others that work less. It's still quite good. 0.30 is a good correlation in when you're trying to do soft science stuff like this, where you're trying to predict people's human behavior. These are the methods that I think makes the most sense. Assessment centers are work samples with just a series of different things, like a business case, a presentation of the results, maybe a role play where they have to pretend to be the leader, and there's actually actors who are playing subordinates or clients or whomever, and giving them situations they have to respond to, and then someone sitting here rating them and reviewing them. Highly effective selection tools. Mental ability tests. We already saw that was one of the top on the list. Anyone know the game Sudoku? Here's a version of it that shapes. This is a deductive reasoning test. This is another kind of a logical test, inductive reasoning test. We call it CLS. This is another one where which one of these is not like the other. Can you find the one that's not the same shape? Here you go. That's the easy sample question. It gets harder and harder. These are online tests. Can be done remotely, and they're very fast, 5, 12 minutes, something like this. So you can get a lot of good information. Work sample, business reasoning. Yes?
Do you have the ability to, and do you have to get permission for getting a snapshot of the person while they're taking the test in order to verify that it's actually them? So if you're doing it online, I mean, how do you have any control over it?
Yeah, great question. You certainly could do that. Another option is proctor testing, right? Another option that, because most companies who have dispersed employees all over the US or globally, realistically they're not going to have mobile testing centers. I mean, that's an option, but a lot of companies don't choose to do it. Another option is you tell them up front, you're taking these tools, we will reassess you when you come in for an interview, and we have a very strict zero tolerance for no cheating on these tools. If your results are substantially different than from what we saw before, you're out. And then what you can do is you simply give them a short version of the test and reassess. And you know what? Often just putting a little bit of the fear of the fact they're going to have to take it again in person helps with that. A lot of these organizations like ours, we don't charge for a reassessment. So you just sit them down, you have them take a short version, and the scores will be fairly similar. This is numerical reasoning and verbal reasoning, actually an online business case, where they actually get to go through a business analysis, problem analysis, reviewing fictitious information about a business. And it's a real good measure of managerial capabilities, because it involves sorting by identifying the right sort of information spread across 3 or 6 tabs. And so it's not just you're given a question, you're given some information, you have to make the answer. You're given lots of information, you have to figure out what the relevant information is, and then make a judgment about it. Isn't that the way the real world works? Managers don't have all the answers and all the information in front of them. They have to go find the relevant stuff, sort through it, and decide what's most pertinent, and then make a decision. Behavioral measures, like integrity tests, honesty tests, actually quite predictive of performance, and don't tend to cause what we call discrimination or adverse impact. Personality measures or competency-based measures. If you just focus on using some of these tools that are in the top level here, that we were talking about before, about being predictive, this is just abilities test, intelligence test. And then if we add any of these others to it, see how the correlation goes up? Obviously, ability test alone is the same. But work samples, adding that on, the correlation goes to 0.63. Adding integrity test, 0.65. Adding conscientiousness, 0.60. Structured interviews, 0.63. So you can actually have an improvement by using a combination of tools. By the way, abilities tests tend to be overall one of the best predictors that you saw before. Doesn't mean you should use it alone. Best practices, what do? We'll focus on what's relevant to the job and to the organization's values. And we've already said that, so we're going to move on. A good structured interview example so you can get a sense of what it looks like. It's set questions, some probes that are structured, and indicators what good and bad look like. You can't see it down here, but there's a rating form at the bottom. And then the hiring manager, it's very easy to just hand this to a hiring manager and say, pick the questions here that you're going to use. You're going to 2 hiring managers are hiring. You take the top 3, I take the bottom 3, and then let's see if they're check off the boxes that give you sort of the indication of whether they're going in the right direction or not in their responses. How do you retain folks? Well, hold on. Let's see. Why do people leave the organization?
The manager.
Their manager, yeah. Most people, if they like their job, in general, they like their career, the biggest reason they leave is that they have some sort of a problem with their manager, or poor relationship, etc. Most people are leaving, that's called undesirable turnover. A lot of employees are disengaged, and they have a lot of ineffective managers. Those are the most common themes that you get from the various surveys, and I'm going to show you a little more about that. Do any of your employees tend to struggle with these issues? Disengagement, they have a feeling their manager isn't very effective, they just are thinking about leaving, that's intentions to turn over, to quit. I'm not talking about the people who are poor performers who you kind of wish would just leave. I'm talking about the ones that you want to keep, but you're not sure how. Does that make sense? So, undesirable turnover, 25% of it is avoidable. Society Human Resource Management's national survey. I had to do that. Basically, it's issues due to poor communication, relationship issues, in other words, with their manager or others. Recognition is not being getting. Often they just feel like this is not what I thought I signed up for. Turnover costs. What do you think it costs? Well, surveys say it costs at least 50%. If you read the other surveys, they range from 100%, 200%, 50%. Bottom line, you hire someone in, there's costs associated with that. You have to use there's time spent for human resources personnel, and hiring managers, and the peers they interview with, just those hours. Then there's the cost of any sort of tools you use to hire people. And then, of course, you have them on board for a couple months where you're training them. And then eventually you hope after 6 months or so they actually know what they're doing enough that they're being productive. But what if they only stay 2 months? All that investment up front, I mean, just salary for 3 or 6 months is a lot, right? Forget all the hiring costs. 71% of Americans are disengaged in their work, according to Gallup. Meaning they've lost productivity, absenteeism, meaning they're just not showing up, they're calling in sick, or they're just doing the minimum necessary to keep their job. Have any workers like that? Also, leadership derailment's a big issue. The leadership derailment research states that over 50% of the leaders are probably ineffective at least, and at worst are actively driving out their subordinates and causing disruption in the organization. These are the reasons why people leave. Let me give you an example. What happens when you use good selection processes in combination? This is an insurance company. We did a business outcome study, a job analysis, identified what were the most critical factors for success, competencies, behaviors, personality characteristics, etc. And then we gave assessments to their current insurance agents and identified what dimensions were most predictive of success in terms of performance. And then we did some analysis to show what would be the best combination tools to use to get the most ROI. And specifically, these competency measure, personality measure, a situational judgment test, and an intelligence test. So performance and assessment score. This is a graph, right? This is a positive correlation. Imagine a line going this way. The higher your assessment score, the higher your job performance is likely to be. Correlation of 0.73. Remember the umbrella example? Comparable. When you use one tool, you may not get that. When you use multiple things together, you really can improve performance. It doesn't have to be that you're sitting in a park and you decide to hire every third person that walks by. But I have HR managers who tell me it's what it feels like here. Because we have such a hard time getting the hiring managers to allow us to do anything that helps them narrow down their decision before they get to look at the candidates. If you can pre-sort the candidates and only send along the ones that are most likely to be successful to hiring managers, and they're picking from the cream of the crop, the odds are going to be much better. These tools help you do it. Structured interviews, online assessments, the realistic job preview tool. I think I went the wrong way. Here we go. This lower region are people who had a low score and also had low performance. Clearly, we're identifying them accurately. That region on the top right, high performance, and the assessment said they're likely to be high performers. Those red dots are the misses. Imagine we're firing at a target, a gun in a shooting range or an arrow in an archery range. The ones that are hitting that target are the green and the green, right? We said they would be high performers, and they were. We said they'd be low performers, and they were. And there's a few here that were not. 107 people accurately identified, 107 hits, only 8 misses. Hit rate, meaning accurately predicting, 93%. Anyone currently think that they're actively making decisions and determinations about employees in the 75 to 95% range? Do you think perhaps some tools like this might be helpful? Anyone heard of this company? I used to say they make boxes in your computers that you put on your desk. That's not what they do anymore. You know that Dell is really now a consulting-oriented company that really shifted their whole business structure around in the last several years, 5 years or less, to being not a computer manufacturer, but rather more of a company that competes with the IBMs and the Oracles of the world. We had account managers who were basically technical salespeople, complete some online tools on personality measure and also a situational judgment questionnaire to help identify what are the relevant factors for success in the role. We were focusing on 2 outcomes specifically, profitability and revenue. Any of your operational leaders or chief HR officers or perhaps the corporate board telling you, why can't HR focus on the things that really affect the bottom line? You want to get a seat at the table? Show them how you can improve revenue and profitability. That usually gets their attention. What did we find? The account managers perform better against revenue targets, a target meaning a goal, were more confident, more conscientious, motivated by opportunities to grow and develop, motivated by job security, and more detached from the outcomes of the process of sales. For profit, we found that they were also more organized and likely to be planful, more driven to achieve difficult goals and targets, motivated by recognition for high performance. These are salespeople. You're surprised that they would be motivated by recognition. And more determined under pressure. Don't you think when the stress is on, the good salesperson is going to be someone who presses on and can keep their cool? Look at this. I couldn't put the dollar figure in because, well, I think you know why. But look at this percentage. Low job match, according to the assessment solution, we're not even hitting their revenue target, meaning their goal was to hit X amount of dollars, and they were below it. They were in the 90-something range. high job match folks were over 130%, meaning 30% above their goal, their target. So would you rather hire people who are exceeding their sales? Research states that over 50% of the leaders are probably ineffective at least, and at worst are actively driving out their subordinates and causing disruption in the organization. These are the reasons why people leave. Let me give you an example. What happens when you use good selection processes in combination? This is an insurance company. We did a business outcome study, a job analysis, identified what were the most critical factors for success, competencies, behaviors, personality characteristics, etc. And then we gave assessments to their current insurance agents and identified what dimensions were most predictive of success in terms of performance. And then we did some analysis to show what would be the best combination tools to use to get the most ROI. And specifically, these competency measure, personality measure, a situational judgment test, and an intelligence test. So performance and assessment score. This is a graph, right? This is a positive correlation. Imagine a line going this way. The higher your assessment score, the higher your job performance is likely to be. Correlation of 0.73. Remember the umbrella example? Comparable. When you use one tool, you may not get that. When you use multiple things together, you really can improve performance. It doesn't have to be that you're sitting in a park and you decide to hire every third person that walks by. But I have HR managers who tell me it's what it feels like here. Because we have such a hard time getting the hiring managers to allow us to do anything that helps them narrow down their decision before they get to look at the candidates. If you can pre-sort the candidates and only send along the ones that are most likely to be successful to hiring managers, and they're picking from the cream of the crop, the odds are going to be much better. These tools help you do it. Structured interviews, online assessments, the realistic job preview tool. I think I went the wrong way. Here we go. This lower region are people who had a low score and also had low performance. Clearly, we're identifying them accurately. That region on the top right, high performance, and the assessment said they're likely to be high performers. Those red dots are the misses. Imagine we're firing at a target, a gun in a shooting range or an arrow in an archery range. The ones that are hitting their target are the green and the green, right? We said they would be high performers, and they were. We said they'd be low performers, and they were. And there's a few here that were not. 107 people accurately identified, 107 hits, only 8 misses. Hit rate, meaning accurately predicting, 93%. Anyone currently think that they're actively making decisions and determinations about employees in the 75 to 95% range? Do you think perhaps some tools like this might be helpful? Anyone heard of this company? I used to say they make boxes in your computers that you put on your desk. That's not what they do anymore. You know that Dell is really now a consulting-oriented company that really shifted their whole business structure around in the last several years, 5 years or less, to being not a computer manufacturer, but rather more of a company that competes with the IBMs and the Oracles of the world. We had account managers who were basically technical salespeople, complete some online tools on personality measure and also a situational judgment questionnaire to help identify what are the relevant factors for success in the role. We were focusing on 2 outcomes specifically, profitability and revenue. Any of your operational leaders or HR, chief HR officers or perhaps the corporate board telling you, you know, why can't HR focus on the things that really affect the bottom line? You want to get a seat at the table? Show them how you can improve revenue and profitability. That usually gets their attention. What did we find? Account managers perform better against revenue targets, a target meaning a goal, were more confident, more conscientious, motivated by opportunities to grow and develop, motivated by job security, and more detached from the outcomes of the process of sales. For profit, we found that they were also more organized and likely to be planful, more driven to achieve difficult goals and targets, motivated by recognition for high performance. These are salespeople. You're surprised that they would be motivated by recognition. And more determined under pressure. Don't you think when the stress is on, the good salesperson is going to be someone who presses on and can keep their cool? Look at this. I couldn't put the dollar figure in because, well, I think you know why. But look at this percentage. Low job match, according to the assessment solution, were not even hitting their revenue target, meaning their goal was to hit X amount of dollars, and they were below it. They were in the 90-something range. High job match folks were over 130%, meaning 30% above their goal, their target. So would you rather hire people who are exceeding their revenue targets by 30%, or the people who are just going to miss it? Profit. Again, a 30%, even more, difference between low job match and high job match. I've given you guys, anyone who wants to go online, download the PowerPoint deck. The one that's online is a little bit shorter than this one, but it's got almost the vast majority of it. A free demo, so you can take 3 different tools. A measure of competencies is a personality-based measure that predicts performance of 18 very common work competencies, useful for all sorts of jobs. A basic math test, it just is numeracy, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And a logical thinking test, a reasoning test. Which one of these is not like the other? My organization has 40 plus different tools, plus a lot of custom tools we designed. These are just some short ones that give you an idea of the types of things that are out there. But please, go to easyjet.com, try out the Try Before You Fly questionnaire, see what that looks like. It only takes 5 minutes. And try these. If you just go to map, TQ, T for test, Q for questionnaire. Like, my daughters, I have 2 little daughters, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and they're in the Dora. There's a little song that goes, I'm the map, I'm the map, I'm the map. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, I'm not an idiot. I know this is a real show. Fine. So anyway, map, TQ, T for test, Q for questionnaire.com. And then the login ID is just GSC Shrm 2014. Easy to remember, but you might want to write it down. Go ahead, try it out if you want, and then if you want your results, email me. If you have any questions, give me a call and email me, no problems. Any questions? I wanted to just make sure I save some time for you guys to have questions. Yes?
I've tried some of these methods, and where I do what I call collaborative recruiting. So
Okay.
I'm an executive recruiter.
Yeah.
And very few companies really want to let you in that close to get involved with what's going on there. But once we did, we call it workplace simulations, and trying to get people to interact from the group, we were able to identify people on the staff that had other issues that weren't being attended to. So it's really great in what comes from it, and I'd really love to encourage it. But I think a lot of companies are very afraid. I mean, even once we're in a trusting place, it's just a matter of this is so different from anything that we're familiar with. So how do you implement your programs? You're coming to these companies, you're making your arguments, you have your proofs, but I would think that some of them would feel like it's a little bit invasive, the amount of knowledge that you have about how their organization works, and how do you work past that?
Well, that's really a consulting question.
Okay.
But I think actually all HR people in the OD or talent space of HR or HR leadership type, when you're trying to get into the more strategic aspects of HR, I'm going to tell you a little secret. You're all consultants. Right? Clients are all the people who you have to kind of talk to every day, who give you all the problems, or calling you, asking you for things, etc. You never really probably thought of yourself as a consultant, perhaps. Maybe some of you have been doing that for years. But the conversation is still relevant. And how do you get them to do something that's completely out of their understanding of what they normally do? Is really what you're asking, right? And to get those conversations going and get in, it involves building rapport and getting relationships and saying, look, I'm not going to make any judgments about what you're doing. I just want to get a good sense of what's currently going on, and how do we currently identify what good people look like, what bad people look like, how do we identify who we should be hiring, what are the people actually doing in the jobs, what do they think are the biggest problems, and just having some conversations with them about what I call like a little focus group. Just sit down and have discussions around what has really worked well when we're trying to bring people in or train people up so they can get up to speed, and what are some critical examples of what didn't work well. Don't tell me names. I don't care who we're talking about per se, but just, where are some clear areas we want to avoid in the future, and where are some clear wins, and what's the direction we think we want to go in.
From the sales arena, it's identifying the pain points.
Yes, absolutely.
It's being really having them articulate where are the issues, what's causing them a headache.
Yeah, that's very true, because if you can ask them these sort of questions, what's really working, what's really not working, and then you find out what some of the pain points are, You can say, if I could help you figure out a way to alleviate that pain and turn it into something that's either acceptable or really turning into a great advantage for you, would that be worth a conversation? Would that be worth a couple meetings? And if you can kind of say, let's just do exploratory. I'm not going to dictate anything. Let's just kind of talk it out together and figure out what makes sense. And then you can start going down a path of exploring some of these other sort of things that would be valuable to them. And I think it's really relationship based. But again, if you don't find the pain points, then why should I care about any of this? What we're doing is fine.
I guess the point is that I guarantee the employee for 6 months to a year. So it's kind of unique in doing that. But at the same time, I need the engagement. But when I do the engagement and they're into it, I identify other things that are going on that sometimes they get a little bit overwhelmed. Sometimes they're like, there's so much on my plate. They cut down with the number of people that were in their department to begin with. So it's great that they feel like there's somebody else that's working with them once they do allow that to happen. But whatever, I'll work it out.
You know what, let's talk offline, because I don't think it's relevant for everyone else in the
Sorry.
room, but I understand where you're going with
Okay.
it. Anyone else have any questions around best ways to bring people in? Has anyone ever seen something like that, the try before you fly, realistic job preview kind of a questionnaire?
Heard about it, not seen it before.
Right. Anyone, when you hire people early in the phone conversations, the phone screens, do you ever actively try to tell them this is what the job's really like? Is that going to be okay for you? Right. That means you're doing it by phone, right? Oh, that's okay. It's less expensive. I'm doing it by phone. Really? How much is your hourly rate?
Right.
If you could automate some of that, so that some of those questions you no longer have to ask, and you can focus on the things that actually are most relevant for you, because they've already been pre-screened in that regard, wouldn't that be helpful?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the whole idea of applicant tracking, but instead of putting everyone into the applicant tracking system, let's only get the people in who might actually like the job and actually might be possibly a good fit for the job to apply.
I have one
yes.
thing to add that you didn't mention is using games to test what people's knowledge is. I think it was Merrill Lynch that used at a college fair, they had some software that they gave out because they realized that a lot of graduate students didn't know the difference between capital markets, fixed income, and another variable. And they wanted them to get a feeling for what it was like before they applied, because they saw a lot of people going over here because of the bigger starting salary, and they wanted them to see these other groups as being great options for them.
They're coming to the brand, but they're trying to direct them to the best role.
So they have
by
a
doing
software
games.
program that's it's basically a game. Play the game, participate in it, and then if you do really well, it says call Mary Higgins in HR. If you don't do well, it says play again. But they're able to get people to understand which way they wanted to go based on enough information that was in there.
It's the same sort of idea, but this is on the career site. Yeah, and by the way, I didn't mention that part up front, but it's anonymous. They don't have to fill out any form. They don't have to give their name. They don't do anything. There's no results sent back to HR. It's purely just to educate them about the job and about the company and encourage them or discourage them from applying. It's the same sort of idea, exactly.
Okay.
And you could do the exact same thing at a career fair on a university campus. You could have it open on a website. They could be filling it out. People walking by saying, hey, you want to play a quick little game from our company? And then it would actively encourage those who. And you could set it up for a job, or you could set it up a little bit more broadly for a category of jobs that are most relevant. It's the same kind of concept. And there's all sorts of online assessment tools. Some of them are custom, some of them are standardized and have lots of good proof showing they work, that are 5 minutes long, 6 minutes long. Our longest tools are 12 minutes time test. That's it. If you give them 2 or 3, it's still only taking them maybe 30 minutes to complete. Even executives generally are only taking like an hour if they give them a whole battery of stuff. But we have, and many other companies do as well, solutions from entry-level hourly employees. We're just trying to make sure they're going to be honest, they're going to show up and be sober and reliable on their job, and they're going to be intelligent enough to read the instructions and follow the plan of what they're supposed to do, or just do simple math, to things that are really highly focused on competency specific for jobs that are professional or executive, etc. If anyone has questions about how to create interview solutions that are more relevant for them, and you just want to do it yourself, but you want some tips, or if you're interested in kind of learning about how these tools turn into the next step after they're hired, how they turn it to help them create engagement in terms of onboarding, or use the data again for like development, for leadership development, or identifying future leaders, or if you just have general questions around this space, I constantly answer questions. There's no cost. Just call me, email me, no problem. It's my pleasure to try to give back to the space. I enjoy that. It's fun for me. Anyone have any other questions before I say, okay, class dismissed?
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming. Please, it's very important to me that you fill out those evaluation forms, and Shrm really wants it too. So please fill it out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.